Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 856-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
It is what it is. It's time to prove people wrong. They took 5 corners before me, and I'm not upset. I'm not mad. Everybody wants to go in the first round. But it is what it is.
We're not going to, say, well, you can take your time. No, we're going to push them. We're going to develop them. We do everything we can to get them on the football field to help us.
No, this kid is really talented. I mean, we're really kind of shocked that he was there.
All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network on a Friday night where 2 hours just ain't enough. But that's all they're giving us. But we have got so much for you tonight. Glad you're with us. Great way to cap off the week with a huge edition of Sports Talk. Of course, the draft stuff. You followed it last night. Shaq Lawson, the only player from the state picked. They'll have 2 more rounds tonight. I imagine we could have 3, maybe 4 players picked in the draft tonight. Bottom of this hour, we'll be joined by our new friend from the NF Bible, Rick Saratella, who's in Chicago. Get his thoughts on everything that happened last night with Shaq Lawson and guys moving down and guys moving out of the first round. We'll get his thoughts on that. USC basketball gets the big commitment today. The 7-1 center from Senegal, who goes to school in Florida, has committed to South Carolina. His coach will join us in about 5 or 6 minutes. Kadeem Gueye, 7'1", 240, commits to USC. On the other side of the ledger, USC football loses a commitment today in wide receiver Stephen Guidry, the junior college player out of Hines, Mississippi Junior College, announced on Twitter he's decommitting, reopening his recruiting. Indicates that USC is still in the picture for him with his hashtag of USC will forever be top 5. Yes, that means to consider them. We've got plenty in recruiting to give you tonight as well. Also coming up on the program, Chuck Reedy, our good friend in the football world, former Clemson assistant, USC assistant, Baylor head coach, Goose Creek head coach, going to join us in the second hour. Get his thoughts on this satellite camp situation now that's evolving in college football. And I think his opinion is one worth listening to because back in his day, he was among the nation's top recruiters. He knew the recruiting game inside and out, and he dealt with some of the biggest recruiting situations of the time, like Herschel Walker. He was Clemson's lead recruiter on Herschel Walker, and had Clemson in position if Georgia hadn't gotten it done. So we'll get his thoughts on the satellite thing. Racing in Talladega. They've got qualifying tomorrow, weather permitting, practice today. We've got the full Monty on NASCAR coming up in his normal time slot at 7:30. We'll hear from Shaq Lawson, his thoughts last night after getting picked 19th by the Bills. It's a full edition of Sports Talk. K-Mac is over at USC for the baseball game, keeping an eye getting underway at 7. Stay with us. We'll be right back. right, busy edition of Sports Talk from downtown Columbia. Coming your way tonight, Phil Kornblut here, and we appreciate you joining us wherever you are heading home across the state of South Carolina. Let's get things rolling with the inside word on South Carolina's newest basketball recruit. He's a biggin, 7'1", 240 pounds. We were doing some research, or some writers were. We think he's the first true 7-footer for the Gamecocks since Mike Britton came through many years ago. Kadeem Gueye out of Senegal attends Victory Rock Prep, Bradenton, Florida. Coach Lauren Jackson is his man, and he joins us here on Sports Talk. Coach, good evening. How are you?
Good evening. How are you doing?
Man, we're doing great. Thank you so much, and congratulations on Kadeem and the Gamecocks getting together. What were some of the reasons that he decided to go with Frank Martin and the Gamecocks?
You know, we think that Frank is a very good developer of big guys and really does a good job with, being patient with big guys. You know, they take a little longer to develop the guards. And Kadeem's a great defender, which is a staple for Frank.
Yeah, absolutely. Guards the rim and rebounds the basketball.
That is correct.
Yeah. How far along does he need to come with his offense to where he can be a contributor in the SEC?
No, we think he's not far away. He's getting better every day with our skill development stuff. And, he's really come a long way. You know, he's going to get more athletic. He's going to get even stronger than what he is right now. And he's got a college body right now, but he could get a lot more explosive. And I think, once he hits campus and people will really love him because he's a great kid. He's got a great smile and he's very personable.
Is he a guy that will go in that weight room? I mean, he's 240 pounds, and is he a guy that'll go in that weight room and so that he can become more of a physical presence inside?
Yeah, he'll probably gain 12 to 15 pounds over the summer of muscle. He's got a great body right now. On a college dietitian diet and with a college dietitian and strength training, even more exclusive than what we do presently. I think he'll be a very, very good and a very, very sound specimen in terms of from a physicality standpoint.
What would you envision offensively when he is a couple of years into his career at South Carolina? They've worked with him, they've developed him. Do you see him being a pure back to the basket post who can develop a hook shot or, turn and shoot over and just score in the lane a variety of ways?
Well, he already has a hook both ways. And it's just with big kids, you have to continue to rep it. He's got all of the moves. It's just, doing them at a college pace now is going to be the key. And then he's a very good screener, and he rolls where he has to take up space, and he's going to get more athletic, so he'll catch it and dunk it in the lane. So I think that the Gamecocks have got themselves a good one. Did
he come to you as a basketball player or coming from Senegal? Was he a soccer player or something else?
Hadeem came, just as this was his first year playing basketball 3 years ago. So he's learned an awful lot. He's one of our best defenders that we've had, and he's going to be a great addition, I think, to what Frank does.
How well does he run the floor for a big guy?
Very well.
Yeah,
very well. Very good.
How would you pronounce the last name?
Gueye.
Gueye. Okay, I've been close.
Yeah.
I've been close.
Yeah.
What's the situation regarding signing the actual papers? Have they come in and been sent back?
They've come in today. We're going to sit down and tomorrow, and he'll sign them at our little social media little conference.
Okay. And your connection here with Perry Clark on the USC staff, tell us about how you guys go back and how that led to this getting put together.
Well, Perry and I go back 1997. He coached one of my kids, Watari Marsh, who was his starting point guard at Tulane. And I've been on Coach Clark for a long time. So, and I know Frank. We have several mutual friends in the business. So, I thought it was a great place and a good fit for Hadim and his continual improvement and his his academic growth as well.
All right. Anybody coming up in your program that Coach Clark is going to be looking at in the next year or two?
Yeah, we got quite a few. This year we put 5 guys in Division I basketball, and we got quite a few kids coming up in our next class. We'll probably have 4 next year or so. And our young kids are very, very good. So we're sure that the Gamecocks will be spending some time down here in Florida.
All right, sir. We'll check back. Listen, thanks very much for the time. Congratulations once again.
Thank you.
Coach Lauren Jackson, Victory Rock Prep in Bradenton, Florida. Kadeem Giai, 7'1", 240. Probably get to be about 250. And you know what? If you're going to miss big. But you hope to hit a winner with a big guy. And so South Carolina now with 6 in this class. And got word today, conversing with him, Rakeem Felder, the point guard who committed a while back up in New York, tells me today that he's going to sign next week. He hadn't signed yet. He's going to sign next week with South Carolina. And he's taking the SAT on May 7th. The test that he took a few weeks ago was actually a practice test. It wasn't the real thing. I think he thought it was the real thing, but it turned out to be like a practice test to prepare him for the SAT. So he takes the SAT May 7th. He's going to go ahead and sign, he said, next week. The day has not been determined. So this gives the Gamecocks 6 in the class. Obviously puts them over the 13 scholarship limit at this particular time. You look at the roster and you think, what are they going to do? If all 6 here come in. And one thing I hear possibly is Tamarcus Blanton could go, don't know for sure, could go on a medical scholarship because of the ongoing issues with the hip. Don't know that for sure. Again, that's just something that's been passed along to me as a possibility. But they have put together what looks to be on paper a good-looking class. They'll go 6. They'll go from top to bottom. They'll go 7'1", 6'10", 6'9", 6'2", 6'2", 6 feet in this class. So they'll look good walking through the airport, I'll tell you that. And for the Gamecocks' sake, you hope that they can play well. Also at Gamecock basketball, talking with a source this afternoon about the opening on the staff, and Dave Dickerson is still in the hunt, according to the source. We're told that Frank Martin and Dickerson have been in conversation this week. In fact, that Dickerson, his wife and son were in Columbia. Second time for Dickerson to be in Columbia to visit with Martin. So that is still alive. Feeling I had gotten after the press conference at Ohio State with Thad Matta after he had hired Chris Gent to come back on his staff, and the things that he was saying sound to me like Matta was holding everything together with the staff, and Dickerson might stay. He might still stay. This doesn't mean he's coming to South Carolina, but when you bring the wife and the kid, and it's the second visit, that's an indication that there's certainly a strong amount of interest, but no deal has been done yet between South Carolina and him. Okay, let's see. What else we got to tell you? Of course, USC and Florida baseball coming up tonight, 7 o'clock, the first pitch. Much anticipated showdown between 2 of the country's top-ranked teams. Florida is, of course, number 1. USC is high as number 2. These are the top 2 teams in the SEC East, with USC leading Florida by a game going into tonight's game, the first of 3 in the series this weekend. The Gators have won 9 of the last 10 in the series. They swept the Gamecocks in Gainesville last year, embarrassing them by a count of 38-10 combined in those 3 games. USC is 33-8, 14-4. The Gators are 36-6, 13-5. It'll be Clark Schmidt, 8-1, 2.04 against right-hander Logan Shore, 8-0, 2.14. Clemson and Florida State, they don't play till tomorrow night. They have changed the times for tomorrow and Sunday. So tomorrow's game was going to be 6:30, will now be at 1, and Sunday will be at 1. Monday remains at 7. This is being done because of the weather. Well, crazy night last night in the NFL's first round of the draft with the Tunsil deal and everything else that went down. Thought maybe Clemson could have 2, 3 taken in the first round. Ends up they only had one, Shaq Lawson, going 19th to the Bills. Here is what Shaq said last night. It was late. He's talking to a reporter from the Bills website on NFL.com. He's talking about being picked by the Bills.
Man, it's amazing to go to Buffalo. I knew I was still sitting there. I was going to be happy to go to Buffalo. I was just waiting. I was like, please hope Buffalo grab me. Just the fact that when I talked to Rex Ryan, man, it's just, I talked to him a lot when I was down there at Clemson, things like that. I really love him. My meeting went great with him. I went in there meeting very confident, very not sure what they was going to say. I knew I would come in there. I knew what kind of guy I was going to get out of Rex Ryan.
It's going to be a kind of a smooth transition for you because you're familiar with the team, with Jonathan Meeks and Sammy and, like you said, Rex, isn't it?
Oh, yes, sir. It's great. You got 2 guys up there from Clemson that's been in the system program and everything. It's going to help me out when I get out there. And then I knew Seth Ryan kind of had a feeling I was going here. He used to give me hints about Shaq. He looked good in Buffalo. Everything is. He used to give me hints when I had class on him.
What? Tell me a little bit about. Tell Bills fans a little bit about what kind of player you are, what you're going to bring to Buffalo.
What kind of player? I'm going to be a guy that set the edge on the run. A guy's going to pass rush. A guy's about winning. A guy's probably passionate the game of football. A guy's going to be involved with the community and everything.
Great. Thanks, Shaq.
Yes, sir.
All right, they're very happy. Shaq Lawson, who'll become a very rich man soon once he signs that contract. Mackenzie Alexander was hoping to be picked in the first round last night. Didn't happen. He had a group of folks over and media people at his place in Florida as well to watch. When it didn't happen, this is what he had to say to the media.
Thankful my family and friends are out here. Thankful you guys are out here, especially the camera crew, ESPN. And it's a good thing I didn't go in the first round. Now I can play 3 years and get that big contract. You know what I mean? So it is what it is. It's time to prove people wrong. They took 5 corners before me, and I'm not upset. I'm not mad. Everybody wants to go in the first round, but it is what it is. I'm going to get what I get, and I'm going to earn my 3 years and get a bonus before they do. You know what I mean? And that's the goal. You know what I mean? And by the way, and either however it go, like me and Trey talked about, I'm going to be a millionaire regardless at 22 years old. So it is what it is. Real talk. So thank you guys. 7 o'clock, you guys can show up. And thank you guys for showing up.
Show me the money is what Mackenzie's saying. He wants to prove to some people they made a mistake. He wants to play well with whomever picks him, get his bonus money, and get on. We'll get more from the draft live from Chicago. Rick Saratella from the NFL Draft Bible coming up after the break. We'll find out what he thinks is going to happen with the local guys tonight. Coming up. Hey, will somebody tell Paxton Lynch there's no crying in football? For crying out loud. He was crying like a little baby when he got picked. What's going to happen when some 240-pound linebacker hits him from the blind side and knocks his helmet into next week? We'll get some thoughts on the draft coming up in a moment from the man who runs the NFL Draft Bible, Rick Saratella. He's coming up next here on Sports Talk, a busy Friday night, continuing here from downtown Columbia, Main Street, where it's a beautiful Friday afternoon. Score big with Founders Federal Credit Union. Founders has convenient office locations on the USC campus and a new location coming soon to Clemson. ATMs on the campuses of Clemson, Converse, Limestone, PCUSC, USC Lancaster, Winthrop, and York Tech. Visit foundersfcu.com for a full listing to find an ATM or office near you. Not a member? Visit relaxjoinfounders.com to see if you qualify for membership. Founders Federal Credit Union, federally insured by NCUA. Braves lost today, by the way, to the Cubs 6-1, if you were wondering. All right, let's welcome in from Chicago. I don't think he went to the baseball game. He's getting ready for day 2 of the draft. Rick Saratella from the NFL Draft Bible back with us after being with us earlier this week. We liked you so much, we had to have you back.
Oh, man, that's an honor and a privilege. And, you know, it's funny because Paxton Lynch, when I had a chance to see him at the Temple game, they were driving him into the ground, and he was crying in the post-game press conference.
Well, he's an emotional guy, and he really cracked up last night. But I understand. I mean, these guys, they're feeling the pressure. It's high emotion, and sometimes it just gets the better of you.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they pretty much grow up trying to live this dream, and such a small percentage of players get an opportunity to move on to the next level, and I get it. And, you know, hey, it's just one of them things.
All right. Laremy Tunsil has become the talk of the draft, not the guy that went first or not any of the other moves. This has become the big story. He doesn't show up today for the Dolphins meet and greet presser because he said he was under the weather or whatever. What's your take on all this?
Well, I think we discussed this when I was on your show earlier, and I was talking about I can't believe the red flags around this player that nobody's talking about. And I think it was all there, right? And then when that video came, it really was the icing on the cake, and it made NFL teams wonder, like, do we really want this headache? And, you know, this was very calculated. This is a first of its kind that we've seen, but it will not be the last. And, you know, with social media and everybody having a camera phone and everybody trying to create a headline, I mean, the world ain't safe no more. And there's a lesson to be learned. And I really thought that the guy just did not get it. When he was asked about it, I give him credit for facing the media and going on stage with Michael Irvin and doing the media Q&A, but he didn't get it. He was talking about, you know, my account was hacked, and then his agent is saying, you know, we got to find out who's responsible for this. Well, Laremy Tunsil's responsible for it. It's your action on the video. You did this. So to me, it just came across like, you know, maybe he doesn't understand it. And while he was doing the slip and slide, Mike Tannenbaum and Adam Gase of the Dolphins, who are represented by Jimmy Sexton, oh, by the way, the same agent for Laremy Tunsil, they were doing their homework and due diligence and, you know, making themselves feel comfortable enough to justify the selection at number 13.
Yeah, boy, I tell you, amazing what happens behind the scenes. And compounding things, I mean, it's bad enough you got that video out there. Then you have to go and admit that you took money from your coaches, and something that, you know, perhaps he could have kept quiet if he'd have kept his mouth shut. But that just added to the drama.
Yeah, you know, it's like I walked into the auditorium here at the draft, and, you know, as soon as I sat down, the buzz about the video started to happen. And then about 20 minutes later, his Instagram gets hacked, and, you know, they posted all kinds of text messages, you know, exchanges with him and his coaches, asking to pay his bills and his mom's rent. And, you know, it was just really one of these things. Like I said, I've never seen anything like it before. It's the new age media. And as a result, it cost them about $8 million in the pocket.
Yeah. Wow. Well, what's the talk about who's going to go first tonight?
Well, you take a look at the Cleveland Browns and the Dallas Cowboys. They have two of the top 3 picks here in the second round. Now, there was 5 or 6 teams trying to trade back up into the first round for Paxton Lynch. Dallas offered a second and third round pick. Seattle had already been in negotiations with the Broncos, so they went back to Denver, and Denver trumped the offer. But I would imagine both teams to use these picks on quarterbacks. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a Christian Hackenberg and a Connor Cook come off the board very early here on day 2.
Okay. We had one player from the state taken, 19th, Shaq Lawson to Buffalo. Your thoughts on that pick?
Oh, well, Rex Ryan and his Clemson ties, I hear that he was just salivating and waiting for Shaq Lawson to fall, and I think we, discussed the shoulder thing, and I think that's maybe why he slid all the way down to number 19, because I think, if not for the shoulder, he might have went a little bit higher, but you talk about a guy like Buffalo had in a Mario Williams type of mold, and somebody who I think is going to make an immediate impact, and Buffalo's not afraid to roll the dice on whether it be injury or character. Rex Ryan doesn't care, and I think it's going to be interesting to see when the Bills come up again today on day 2. Noah Spence is now sliding down, and boy, I remember Rex, living in New Jersey, coaching the Jets. He never had a pass rusher during his time in New York, and obviously they need some pass rush help in Buffalo, and Shaq Lawson is going to do that, but. Boy, what if Noah Spence falls to them in the second round and they pair those two guys up?
Oh, my goodness. Of course, there was a report last night after he was picked that Shaq's going to have surgery on that shoulder, if not this year, this season, that at some point that will sideline him 4 to 6 months. You think they'll try to get him through the 2016 season?
That's the first I've heard of that, and I know that was the concern with teams as to whether or not that was an immediate thing or something down the road. And I think, again, each team does their independent medical reports, so there's varying opinions. So I'm not how Buffalo feels about it exactly, but I'm thinking that, if they use the 19th overall pick on him, I would be more with the assumption that they're going to try to let him play and see how that goes. And, it'll be interesting because you see a guy like Dante Fowler last year who missed the entire season. And, if Shaq Lawson has 4 to 6 months, I mean, that's pretty much redshirting your rookie season.
All right, real quick, we've got about a minute to go. From Clemson, Mackenzie Alexander, Kevin Dodd, maybe B.J. Goodson. From South Carolina, Jarrell Adams, Pharaoh Cooper. Those 5, you think all 5 come off the board tonight, or will there be some left for Saturday?
No, I think it's very realistic for all those guys to come off the board. I think, some people might be surprised with B.J. Goodson would be my bet to be the first guy off the board. And I think that might surprise a little bit of people. But he's one of these fast risers leading up to the draft. And some of these shorter cornerbacks, we saw Vernon Hargraves kind of not slide, but, you saw a couple guys go before him. Eli Apple, I thought, was a little bit different. And that could not be good news to Mackenzie Alexander, the way the league is trending with the taller, lankier, faster type of cornerback. He might slide down into the bottom of the second, even into the third round type of mix.
I should throw TJ Green into that mix as well.
Oh, yeah. I think, there's another fast riser. I think somebody who can come up, make a big hit, sometimes misses and gives up a big play too. But, I mean, there's stuff there that they can develop and mold at the next level. And with the safeties, those were some guys that came off the board yesterday with Joseph and some of the other safeties coming off the board. So I think that bodes well for the Clemson safety, TJ Green, to maybe come up off a few slots here in the top half of the second round.
Hey, Rick, thank you, my man, and we will catch you next week to review everything.
Awesome. Can't wait to do it.
Thank you, Rick Saratella of the NFL Draft Bible. Javon Hargrave from South Carolina State, another one to watch tonight who could come off the board. We'll be right back. It's a Friday edition of Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, presented by South Carolina soybean farmers and their checkoff. Learn more at scsoybeans.org. Pork, powered by soy. Yeah, great day for baseball and a great series coming up. We think it will be a great series over at USC between Florida and the Gamecocks. Now, the Gators have had the Gamecocks number going back here several years, really embarrassed them in Gainesville last year, and this is a deep and talented Florida team that can pitch, that can pick, can steal and hit. They can do everything, and the Gamecocks are pretty good at most everything too. We'll see which one executes better. Kevin McCrary, who only appears on this program the night after a Braves victory. Braves win last night, K-Mac shows up on the program, and he's over at Founders Park. What's it like over there?
Yeah, a lot of R&R thanks to the Braves. Well, it is a big crowd that is making its way into Founders Park tonight, as you can imagine. This is the biggest game in the country in terms of college baseball. Florida fans, I've even seen some blue and orange out there in the stands that have made the trek wherever they're from to watch this game. Passed Wilson in the house when I was walking into the press box here at Founders Park, so he's even showing up here to cheer on the Gamecocks against his old school. So it's a big-time, kind of a postseason type of atmosphere, as you would imagine, with these two getting together.
Ah, it's interesting. Yeah, okay. A great night for it, of course. What's the wind look like it's going to do tonight?
The wind, well, it wasn't blowing that hard when I walked in. It was, it's been a pretty hot day. In fact, today's the hottest day of the year so far. It was 91. It's starting to cool off a little bit, but I don't see a lot of wind right now.
All right. What about the lineups? You had a chance to check those?
I have had a chance to check the lineups. The Gamecocks, the big notable thing, Madison Stokes is batting sixth and playing second base. No T.J. Hopkins tonight. I know it's hard for Holbrook to play for him. He's hitting so well when he does get his chances, but he's not in because they have Clark Schmidt on the mound, and Schmidt has a relationship with Chris Colin behind the plate. He likes Colin to catch him. So Colin is in the lineup behind the dish, and he's batting seventh tonight. Everything else status quo in terms of lineup. Gene Cone with his hot stick leading off. Dom Thompson-Williams second. John Jones batting third. Destino in the cleanup spot. Jonah Bride playing third base and batting fifth. And Stokes, as I mentioned, playing second, batting sixth. And Colin in that seventh spot. L.T. Tolbert is batting eighth, and then Marcus Mooney batting ninth and playing shortstop.
All right. What do you think is going to be some of the deciding factors here? These teams, you look at them statistically in every category, and they're just so evenly matched based on what they've done so far this season.
Yeah, Logan Shore starting for the Gators. They moved their rotation just a little bit, and he's been pitching on later in the weekend this season, but he's starting tonight. So clearly, Soley saw something there that he liked with Logan Shore, and you said a great pitcher, 8-0, 2.14 ERA going against Schmidt, who's 8-1 with a 2.04. And when you have a game like this with evenly matched teams, it seems pretty simple, and it seems almost cliche, but you just have to make all the plays you're supposed to make. You can't give the other team an extra out. If you start committing errors and extending innings, that's going to hurt you. And when you get guys on base, when you have a guy on third with less than 2 outs, you got to get him in. You got to find a way to scratch through runs when you have those opportunities. And it's a razor thin margin of error in baseball to begin with, but when you're talking about these two teams, it's thinner than razor.
Yeah. I think too, key for South Carolina is playing relaxed baseball in front of a fired up home crowd, and with the number one team in the country in front of you, a team that really embarrassed you last year, but not getting so hyped up and tense where you just make those mistakes in the field.
Absolutely. And, they've got to have a huge impact from this crowd. That's one of the things that Founders Park, South Carolina, has been unbelievable here at Founders Park by and large over the years. But maybe they've lost a little bit of that edge last year. And I know Holbrook even this season has said, we need to get back to that. So that will be big if they can feed off that home crowd.
Okay, K-Mac. Thank you, sir. We'll check back with you in the next hour, and it should be a great night for baseball here in Columbia. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Kevin McCrary over at Founders Park. And I mentioned last year South Carolina getting their proverbial head handed to it from Florida, being outscored in those 3 games. It was a 38-10 composite score. And let's see, first game was 14-3, and it was Logan Shore they faced in that first game last year. The Gamecocks actually got 8 hits off of him and 3 earned runs, but their bullpen came in and shut the Gamecocks down the rest of the way, and they really got to Will Crow, one of his poorest outings last year. He gave up 7 earned runs. Gamecocks lost that one 14-3. All right, time for the Friday recruiting knowledge to carry you into the weekend. We'll begin again with the football news from USC that receiver Stephen Guidry, Hines Junior College, Mississippi, decommitted on Twitter. Quote, "I'd like to thank the coaches and fans of University of South Carolina for the opportunity, the vast amount of love. But after discussing things with my family, we feel it's safe that I decommit from USC and reopen my recruitment. Hashtag USC will forever be top 5. Earlier this week, he told us he was still solid, about 85%, and communicating daily with recruiter Brian McClendon, but also hearing from Mississippi State, Arizona State, Alabama, Auburn, Louisville, has offers from Arizona State, Mississippi State, and he said the Bulldogs were working hard to flip him. This leaves 7 commitments in the class. Running back Chase Hayden of Collierville, Tennessee, is high on USC's board. Recruiter Bobby Bentley by the school this week for an evaluation. He's got 16 offers, Oklahoma State the most recent. Of his offers, he's most focused on USC, Arkansas, Tennessee, Michigan, Missouri, Mississippi State, and Illinois. USC and Arkansas and Tennessee and Mississippi State have been visits this spring, and he plans to get to Oklahoma State and Illinois and revisit USC this summer. No favorite at this point. USC, Tennessee, and A&M in Missouri have been by his school. Uncommitted 2016 defensive end Michael McDaniel, Loganville, Georgia, continues to hear from USC, Georgia, and Texas A&M as he waits for his academic status to be determined. This according to his assistant coach, Kenyatta Watson. Watson said he talked with USC linebacker coach Coleman Hutzler Wednesday night. He said McDaniel is awaiting the result of a test he took related to his high school graduation. Bluffton athlete Cameron Bent visited Temple early this month. He enjoyed the visit. They like him as a receiver. He also was at USC spring game. He talked with Will Muschamp and McClendon and Pat Washington and Hutchler while there. He plans to camp at USC this summer. The coaches plan to see him this spring, though he's out recovering from a torn ACL. He'll still run the 40. There was a time he was considering making a commitment to USC, but now he wants to keep his options open. USC likes as a receiver. Georgia Tech recruiting him as a quarterback, but hasn't offered. He went to Clemson in March, and recruiter Tony Elliott remains in touch and is going to see him this spring. Notre Dame Thursday offered Wando receiver Ortre Smith and Pendleton defensive end Brad Johnson. Wren quarterback Jay Urich was offered Thursday by Southern Miss. USC commitment offensive lineman Eric Douglas of Charlotte will attend tomorrow's prospect cookout. He says his teammates, offensive lineman TJ Moore, receiver Ryan Jones will also be in. Moore could be on commitment watch. He's been favoring the Gamecocks. He's been real quiet of late. That might be something worth watching on Saturday. Basketball, of course, USC got the commitment, as you heard, from 7-1 Kadeem Gueye. USC commitment point guard Rakeem Felder tells us this evening he will now sign his LOI with the Gamecocks on Saturday. So he's moved it up. He's going to do it tomorrow. Brad Brownell at Clemson last night offered 6'8" power forward Raquan Gray from Fort Lauderdale. And we'll be back.
Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
They trot out Dick Butkus to open things up in the draft in Chicago. What a great player. What a great guy. Love that guy. They're underway at USC and leadoff walk for Florida. First, no score. Let me go back and finish just a couple of more recruiting notes. We were talking about an offer from Brad Brownell to 6'8" power forward Raquan Gray of Fort Lauderdale on Thursday. He was also offered by Florida State on Thursday. He also has Cincinnati, Illinois, Auburn, Kansas State, Ole Miss, Rutgers, Tennessee, UAB, and Virginia Tech. Excited to get the offer from Clemson. Likes him, the ACC and all of that. He thinks Clemson will be a factor in his recruiting moving forward. This is a 2017 prospect. Averaged 16 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists per game last season. Couple of other football notes. USC today offered 2018 quarterback Artur Sikowski, Matawan, New Jersey. No H in that first name. It's Artur, A-R-T-U-R. And receiver J.J. Robinson of Lakeland, Florida, who at one time, according to stories, appeared to be a lock for Clemson, told Rivals today he's now favoring Florida ahead of Clemson. He's also looking at Michigan State, Michigan, Florida State, and Georgia. Boy, if Clemson were to pull him out of Lakeland, Florida, because the Gators normally have Lakeland, Florida on lockdown. So many great players they've gotten from there into their program. If Clemson were to make that happen, that would be huge. But right now he does have the Gators out in front of the Tigers. There you go with the recruiting for now. South Carolina's got that prospect cookout tomorrow. I'm assuming hamburgers and hot dogs and maybe some fried chicken thrown in and some barbecue things of that. And they will try to impress these 2017, 2018 prospects coming in. And we'll let you know tomorrow as things develop. If there's any big breaking news, we'll have it on the website, sportstalksc.com. And looking over some of the names that of players who will possibly be in. I think TJ Moore, the offensive lineman from Charlotte, possibly could be a commitment. Jay Ulrich, the quarterback from Wren, though he says no, you never know. It might hit him. The moment might hit him if they kind of push the button a little bit saying, hey, we need to go ahead and get you locked down. Could possibly see that happen. Austin Connor from Dutch Fork, wide receiver who's been over there a lot and likes them. They like him. Just thinking about the ones that could possibly do something, or they might do nothing at all. So we'll just have to wait and see how it plays out. Muschamp will let you know with the old Spurs up thing if something does happen. All right, they are scoreless underway over at USC. We're going to talk about these satellite camps and is it a big deal or not? Should people be upset about it, concerned, or not? Chuck Reedy coming up. All right, still scoreless over at USC. Gators are still batting, still have a runner on first. There are 2 men out as they're underway over at Founders Park. One of the big stories yesterday, the news from the NCAA's Board of Governors that they were going to rescind the ban on the satellite camps and then send it back for more discussion. In typical NCAA action, they take an action, then they rescind it, then they send it back for more discussion. Excuse me. So it's a convoluted process, and I wanted to bring in somebody. Excuse me. Wanted to bring in somebody, a trusted source with deep football knowledge and intellect. Of course, that could only mean Chuck Reedy, longtime football coach, now retired from the sport, but still very much keeping an eye on what happens around the country. Coach, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing great, Phil. Better than you, it sounds like.
Yeah, I'm on the back end of this thing, and every so often it creeps into my throat. So, thank you for being with us on a Friday. I know you're relaxing and want to do other things, but I wanted to talk about this while it was still hot news. What's your opinion about this satellite camp thing? Is it anything to get worked up over, or is it a bad thing?
Well, first of all, I'm not in favor of it, and as you just alluded, the NCAA, they don't know what to do with it. So that means that the colleges and the coaches, they're kind of in limbo as well, because they don't know how this thing is going to go or where it's going to go. The satellite camps benefits the Michigans, the Ohio States, the people up north much more than it does the SEC and the ACC were the ones that were fighting the camps. But what it does, it gives gives Ohio State an opportunity to come to Atlanta or to Jacksonville, Florida, or to Miami or whatever, and recruit the kids, have them in, they pay $30 or whatever, and they have an opportunity to recruit them for a day. And as you said, they're going to reevaluate this thing. I think in September they're supposedly going to come out with a whole new recruiting, and it'll be addressed. But in the meantime, it opens a can of worms for a lot of things to go on.
Yeah. What do you think is in that can of worms? What could go on?
Well, if there's a great player in Bamberg, South Carolina, and I'm Ohio State, I'm just using them as an example.
Yeah.
I could go to Bamberg Earhart High School and have a camp and spend the day with that kid.
Mm-hmm.
Who's to say where you can go to have a camp? These are things that I don't think are spelled out. Now, I don't know all the rules that are in place, but there's, and you've got, Jim Harbaugh at Michigan. Obviously, he's pushing the envelope, as far as you can push it. Going to, the IMG there in Bradenton or Florida, wherever that is over there, and having spring practice. So there's just so many areas I think that open themselves, to questionable, practices.
Back in your day at Clemson, you were as good a recruiter as there was in the country. I think if there had been recruiting networks back then, they rank recruiters now, these recruiting networks. They like to rank them and name their recruiter of the year. I'm sure you would have been a top-ranked recruiter and a recruiter of the year, and you were involved with some of the biggest people of your time, in particular one guy named Herschel Walker. So you know of which you talk when it comes to recruiting. My spiel last night was this is another step in the wrong direction in increasing recruiting activity, when I think the NCAA and the school should be looking at ways to pull it back and clean it up and reduce it. Now, am I off, on chasing a dog chasing its tail or something here, or am I completely wrong?
No, you're not. And as the NCAA at one time, in the 90s, and they did pull back. They cut. They instituted all the dead periods, and they cut back on the contacts and all of these other things that they did. And now it seems like, it seems like they are somewhat helpless to define exactly what it is that they, the rules that they want to have. And I think a lot of it is the fact that the Power Five conferences have become so strong that the NCAA is somewhat helpless. I don't know how much, power they still have. And so, it just looks to me like it's kind of chaotic out there, and nobody really knows exactly what is going on.
Yeah.
But and I was thinking about it today. The camps are there was a time when camps were, for matter of fact, when I first went to Clemson, camps were money makers for coaches. That's what they were. You spent 2 weeks and all of basically the alumni and they brought their young kids in and then left them there for a week, and basically babysat them, and for 2 weeks or a week, and then you had another one for another week, and the coaches made money doing that. And then it gradually, and Herschel Walker was a great example. We had him in our football camp, but it was a 5 or 6 day camp. Now, everything it's all recruiting, geared toward recruiting, and it's the 1 day camp where you charge a minimal amount of money, and you have the opportunity to try them out, number one, and then number two, to recruit them. And, and that's the direction that it's gone.
Let me mention here, with the second pick of the second round, the Titans have taken Clemson defensive end Kevin Dodd. Emmanuel Okpa from Oklahoma State, the defensive end, was the first pick in the round to the Browns. So Kevin Dodd goes as the 33rd pick in the draft. Back to Coach Reedy, talking about recruiting and the satellite camps and all of that. How, from a football standpoint, as a coach evaluating a player, how much do you get in terms of making a decision on a player from these camp settings? Is that more important than the spring evaluation period, or watching their tape, or watching their actual junior or senior season? What's it being based on?
It's just one part of the puzzle. The most important part, watching the tape and seeing how they play. But when you have them in camp, you can time them in the 40. You can vertical jump them. You can put them through drills. You can do an awful lot, to evaluate them. And you can't do any of those things, other than through a camp. When you go to watch them in the spring, watch them practice, you don't get to time them. You don't get to do all those other things. So, there's a tremendous, that's a very important part of the whole process. Now, let me, there's another part of this puzzle that's also coming along. A lot of schools now, hire the recruiter to work their camps.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another angle, and of course that's gone, that's been going on for 20 or 30 years as well. Because, if you're going to bring a kid in for a 4 or 5 day camp, you're looking at $200, $300, $400, is the going price. So, you got to find a way for them to pay for that. So anyway, there's a lot going on with camps, and as I mentioned earlier, I just think there's a lot of gray area, and there's certainly a can of worms that could be opened up.
All right, Coach, hang on if you would. Want to hold Joe for a couple more minutes. A 2-run homer by Destino. USC has taken a 2-0 lead on Florida in the bottom of the first. We'll be right back. All right, USC up 2-0 on that 2-run homer by Destino, bottom of the first in the draft with the third pick, round 2, number 34. Cowboys take linebacker Jalen Smith out of Notre Dame. Back for a couple of more minutes with Chuck Reedy talking about satellite camps and recruiting and things of that nature. So what do you think the NCAA will eventually do? And the other thing, what about the cost of these camps? Are these expensive to put on? Is this going to be something that is going to become cost prohibitive, or can the schools easily afford to put these things on and travel? I guess they take their entire staffs to these camps.
Yeah, for the most part, they would. You're not talking about a lot of money. Now because you're not housing the kids. You're not, there's not a lot of money involved in feeding them and what have you. There will be some insurance costs involved, but it's a drop in the bucket compared to to what they're spending on recruiting anyway. So I don't think that will be the issue. I think it's just where do you draw the line?
Mm-hmm.
How many of them can you have? There's got to be some limit, as to how many. There's got to be some time frame limit, and so forth and so on. And again, I think that obviously the SEC and the ACC, I think are going to fight this, even though they're going to jump right in it and they'll be right in the middle of it if it's approved.
So that's the problem, right? Because if you're not, even though you might be against it, this is the thing. Nobody will stand on principle. You might not agree with it and you might be against it, but if the other guy's going to do it, by God, I've got to go do it too, because I might lose that left tackle.
That's right. No, everybody's going to be doing it. I mean, if it's legal, everybody's going to do it. I mean, you have no choice. You've got to jump in with both feet and go full speed ahead. So, it'll just be interesting to see where the NCAA comes down. And, like I said, I mean, I just don't know how strong they are anymore. I think, we'll just see how much influence the Big Ten and I think the Big 12, you've got a lot of Big 12 schools that want to be able to go to Texas and have satellite camps.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would be surprised if Texas was in favor of it, but I can assure you Oklahoma and Oklahoma State and the Kansas, whatever, they're going to be all in favor of it because, they want to be able to go to Houston and go to Dallas, and have those kids be able to come, to their camps. So, it'll be interesting to see, but, they're going to have to do something to make it definitive so that, the coaches in the schools know exactly, where the limits are.
Coach, as always, a pleasure talking to you. Have a great weekend, and we will get back to you soon the next time we have a major pressing football issue.
All right, great to talk to you. Thank you, Phil.
As always, thank you. Chuck Reedy, our brains on football here on Sports Talk. Hunter Henry, tied in from Arkansas, goes to the Chargers with the 4th pick, round 2. We continue a busy Friday night here on Sports Talk. It is a racing weekend at Talladega. It's time for the full Monty on NASCAR. We welcome in our good friend, Monty Dutton of MontyDutton.com fame. Well, one thing we can be assured of when we race at Daytona and Talladega, we're going to have a last lap dash to the wire. Great finish at Daytona back in February. I don't know if we'll have that kind of finish, but it'll come down to the very end.
Yes, the two tracks are similar in many ways, but they're different too. Talladega is much wider, and the thing with Daytona is bumpier and narrower. Talladega usually is more outlandish than Daytona because it's a track. You know, when people play racing video games, they always play Talladega because it's easy. But what Talladega does is it gives the best drivers in the country enough rope to hang themselves. And when things get desperate, you know, you get there and it's 2 wide, 3 wide, 4 wide, 5 wide, and then something really bad usually happens. And so it'll be exciting. It'll probably be, there'll be a lot of time that you'll cringe and say, oh my gosh, I hope nobody gets hurt. And hopefully it's been a long time since anybody has. So it's probably going to be a wonderful spectacle, just like it always is.
Yeah. Now, during your days of traveling the circuit, Daytona and Talladega, did you ever have a chance to walk out on on those two tracks and compare the feeling of the banking at Daytona to the feeling of the banking at Talladega?
The feeling of it is about the same. Talladega is slightly higher bank, but just the whole thing with Daytona is it's sort of like Daytona is 3 lanes wide and Talladega is 4. Talladega is strikingly wider and broader. I mean, you know, Talladega was built to accommodate speeds that are faster than what they're running now, but it probably wasn't built to have them all in use at the same time.
Now, watching a practice today, one of the points of conversation by the guys in the booth, the fact that you've got 36 charter teams who'll be in the field. They're talking about qualifying tomorrow and having to go to owners' points for those 36. And then you've got those independent teams who, in practice today, were kind of treating it like a race or qualifying because they need top speed in practice to get into the field.
Yes, that's sort of a unique consideration that we haven't dealt with that much. It is very common at Talladega for someone who is not even a factor at other places to be very fast. I mean, most of the time the big teams went out by working together, but particularly when you had that period of time when they had the bump drafting and there was almost like they were running, 2 cars working together. It's like you couldn't do anything unless you had another guy tied to you. It would almost look like there were chains attached to him. And that really did, I think, create even more of an opening because somebody could just swoop down on the outside and get hooked up with somebody and pick up a head of steam and go by a pile of people before they even knew they were there. And I think Talladega also is a place where just the fact that the racing is so wide open and the track is so wide, I think that tends to be more likely at Talladega than Daytona because over history, you know, there was a race in the 70s that Ron Bouchard won because basically Darrell Waltrip and I don't know what his Earnhardt Pierce, I can't remember the other two, but he basically went by both of them while they were too busy occupied with each other. And those type things in a different setup happen today.
What's going on with the 14 car and Tony Stewart and a relief driver? What's his situation?
Well, I would like to think, and I guess that just because of the fact that, you know, if you're on the mend from a back injury, there's an excellent chance of really jarring injury. Mm-hmm. And so I don't, you know, if relief driver won the race and it was credited to Tony and Tony made the chase about that, there would be a howl that would rise up. But you also have to look at medical reality, and the fact is it's legal, so he can do it if he wants to. The way that a lot of guys fret about Talladega and how much that they know it's exciting, but they come out of those races wringing their hands and acting like, gosh, thank goodness I don't have to do this again for a long time. If that happened, you wonder if someone else might try to do that, because it is frightening, no doubt about it.
Yeah, well, Ty Dillon is set to qualify the car tomorrow if they do have qualifying, and then replace him if the back starts to act up or whatever the case may be. Well,
Talladega is a place where if your back wasn't hurting, it'd probably start acting up. So
yeah,
I understand the objections to that, but I also know that from a realistic point of view, Talladega, it's not. I mean, they run through. Last week was at Richmond.
Mm-hmm.
You have the worst wreck in the world at Richmond. It's half the speed of Talladega, and so certainly, I mean, the medical, worries for anyone. Now, it has been a long time now since someone who was, really seriously injured. But if you aren't vigilant about things like that, there's always a race between. One of the races between cars on the track, another one is between speed and safety. And over time, the race, in the whole history of NASCAR, the safety has gotten much better. After a bunch of deaths in the mid-'60s, they started using interliners and do things. And then it would stay safe for a while, but then, all of a sudden you had that around 2000, Kenny Irwin and Adam Petty and then Dale Earnhardt. And when Dale Earnhardt got hurt, they made a lot of advances and made a lot of changes, and the race is much more safe. And I would contend, by the way, that statistically, racing is probably a much safer sport than professional football in just about every area today.
Mm-hmm.
But you always have to be vigilant because there's too many variables, and people start working on their cars or changing the way. I really think that around 2000 that they started bulking they start putting cross members and bulking up the cars, and they made the cars very stiff, and nobody knew that rigidity of the cars was making it where there was more shock that the body was taking on, and you had a rash of death that happened there. Well, there's not any sign that anything like that is going to happen in the near future, but you have to always worry about that because people tend to take things for granted.
All right, this week it was announced that Chip Weil is leaving Darlington to become president at Daytona. What's that mean to Darlington's future?
Well, it's funny that I know Chip Weil, but I knew him as a team PR rep. And so when he moved into management, well, I met him. I'm not, I can't tell you any stories about things that he's done, but I'm sure that shows that he's done an outstanding job. It's funny how these things happen. Darlington continues to draw well. And I think that when you're at that track, it's a good way to rise up the totem pole because so many other places they aren't. Just for instance, I used to think that the late Jeff Bird, he died tragically, but he stepped into the greatest situation in the world because he moved in as president of Bristol just when Bristol became, the most overwhelmingly successful track in NASCAR. And on the other hand, Ed Clark, who was just as prominent from the same group, went down to Atlanta, and Atlanta has been like an albatross around his neck.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that Chip was very fortunate to have been at Darlington, and I think Darlington itself is part of the reason. But I mean, he's obviously moving up. He's now going to one of the most prestigious spots in the management of auto racing.
No question about that. Okay, hard to pick a winner at Talladega because a winner can come from anywhere in the last 300 or 400 yards. So take a swing at it.
Well, I think that some people do have the knack. I think Talladega is a place where a veteran driver who knows what he's doing, for instance, late in Dale Earnhardt's life, I believe that he wasn't the driver he'd once been at most tracks. He had reached the stage in his career where he was playing it smart and slipping in the top 10 like Petty and Darrell Waltrip. But but the greatest race he ever ran was the last one he won. And I think Talladega is a place where that comes in handy.
All right. Well, we'll see. You're not going to give me a quick name, huh?
Oh, I'll give you a name. I'll give you Brad Keselowski.
Okay. It is Brad Keselowski.
I thought of that 1 second before I said it.
Sounds good. Thank you. We're back at Sports Talk, presented by the South Carolina Commission on Higher Education. Find out how you can get help paying for college at one of 42 events this month. Go to sccango.org. In a moment, a few comments from USC football coach Will Muschamp over at Founders Park. It's still USC 2-0. They've moved to the top of the third, USC leading Florida. And catching you up on the draft, the 5th pick, Miles Jack, the linebacker from UCLA with the questionable knee by the Jaguars. The 6th pick, Chris Jones, defensive tackle, Mississippi State, to the Chiefs. 7th pick, the Dolphins took Xavier Howard, cornerback from Baylor, to the Dolphins. 7th pick, Buccaneers just took defensive end Noah Spence, originally from Ohio State, finished up at Eastern Kentucky. The Giants are now on the clock. Last night in Sumter, Will Muschamp was there for one of the Spurs Up tour stops. Media was there as well. Here's a little bit about what he had to say to the reporters on hand there.
Issue. But again, how these guys will respond in 80,000 people, Williams-Brice Stadium, I don't know. But I do know what I like, some of the things I've seen in practice. We are a very thin football team. We can't afford any injuries. And we've got to have some guys come through, which I think they're capable. But have they done it on game day? No. So we need to do it on game day.
Is there any insight you can give us into kind of your guys' plan for the satellite camps?
Again, we're going to meet as a staff tomorrow about some things, and I've got some ideas that we've already kind of discussed as far as maybe going to some areas, obviously Charlotte, Atlanta, and Jacksonville, getting into Florida a little bit. But again, I think the huge selling point for us in South Carolina is getting a young man on our campus, because we have a beautiful campus. We have a great situation with Columbia and the city of Columbia. I think there's so many positive things going with that, and we've got a lot of guys that are going to be on our campus. But certainly, we will take advantage of being able to go off campus and evaluate players.
What did Daniel Fennell kind of show you over the course of spring to kind of get that first team out?
I think work ethic was something I was really impressed with. Consistency in his performance came out, worked every day. Again, a guy that's got a lot of character and got some toughness about him. A lot of the things, intangible things that we want in our program, he possesses.
You've talked about how impressive it is the fan base is. How impressive that both of these events have been sold out so far?
Well, again, that goes to the most loyal fan base in the country, and I really appreciate them. And we want to be accessible to them as much as possible, and then come to these things. These are very important to me.
You spoke highly of the tight ends for most of the spring. NFL draft starts tonight. The first Gamecock player taking the draft will likely be a tight end, Jarrell Adams. Man, what impact would that have on you guys recruiting tight ends? And is that how important is it? Has the importance of tight end gone up in recent years in college football?
Well, again, tight ends are very difficult to find, because right now in high school football, they're playing wide out, or they're blocking at the point of attack, but they're not doing both things. To be able to find a guy that can do both things, Jarrell can do both things, and I played against Jarrell. He's a really good football player. I really like Aiden Hurst and KC Crosby. Those are two guys. Again, you're talking about a guy that I think have started 2 games, one has started 3. So they don't have a lot of experience, but I think they're good football players. But I do feel very good about Evan Henson and Robert Tucker. 2 young men. He's done some really nice things. Excited about him, and so I feel good about us moving forward at the position and with the guys we have.
The fact that Hayden's an older guy, hasn't spent 3 or 4 years in minor league baseball, I mean, does that help him?
Well, the maturity. It's just maturity. So much of coming into a situation has to do with maturity. Has to do with a guy that has been through transition, has been through change, has been through a lot of those things, and that goes with maturity.
Do you have any plans in terms of watching the draft throughout, being that you've got a number of Florida guys who are probably going to be picked?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to call those guys once they get drafted. I've talked about every NFL team, in the last month or two about our guys and guys at Auburn and guys that I've recruited. There's a lot of coaches and general managers that trust me, and I've recruited a lot of these guys, whether or not I signed them or not, or I competed against them. So I get a lot of phone calls about the type young man, and I've been in the homes of a lot of these young men. So you get a lot of phone calls.
Obviously, not necessarily your players here at South Carolina, but how important is the NFL draft weekend for your program?
No doubt. I mean, you look at Jarrell and Pharaoh, and Brandon Shell's got a lot of positive. Mike Matulis is a guy that was in the weight room today. Hopefully, we'll get an opportunity. So there's no doubt we're pulling for all of those guys. And TJ Gurley was at graduation the other day. I thought was a really good football player for us. Made a lot of plays for South Carolina. So I hope all those guys get a great opportunity.
With DeMarcus King, sort of tweeting out when he's going to arrive here, how much does adding a corner like that kind of help the quarterback spot where you move a number 1 down to a number 2, number 2 down to a 3 like that?
Well, he'll have to create that when he gets on the practice field. That won't happen until he gets on the practice field if he earns that opportunity. So, but there's no doubt having him in camp before, which we've had. He's got really good tape. He's got length. He's got all the critical factors at the position to be successful. Certainly will help our football team.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks,
Coach. Thank y'all very much.
Okay, Will Muschamp from Sumter last night, and this afternoon, offer from Muschamp has gone out to athletes. Jordan Pouncey out of Winter Park, Florida. He's a 2017 recruit athlete, Jordan Pouncey. Back in a moment. And we're back. Final couple of minutes on this Friday edition of Sports Talk. We remind you from the South Carolina Forestry Commission, insects and diseases can be moved hundreds of miles in firewood and threaten our forests, favorite campsites, neighborhoods, and state and national parks. Help protect the trees you love by purchasing firewood at or near where you burn it. For more information, visit don'tmovefirewood.org. In the draft, let's back it up a second. Sterling Sharp, the receiver from Oklahoma, goes to the Giants, 9th pick, 2nd round. 10th pick, the Bills take Reggie Ragland, linebacker from Alabama. Another guy who dropped a little bit because of health concerns with the heart. But they say he'll be fine. He's going to go to the Bills with the 10th pick. Let's head out to Founders Park, South Carolina and Florida, that big SEC series opener. So far, 2-0 Gamecocks on the strength of Alex Destino's home run. And K-Mac joins us. And Clark Schmidt's been pretty darn good for the Gamecocks so far, K-Mac.
Yeah, Corman, I think you mean Sterling Shepard from Oklahoma State, not Sterling Sharp. That would be a story.
Did I say Sterling Sharp?
You did.
Okay.
You did. They thought maybe he's making a comeback. Yeah, but Alex Destino, a 2-out, 2-run homer set up by a John Jones 2-out walk. The Gamecocks riding that 2-0 lead here into the top of the fourth inning. A nice start for the Gamecocks, obviously.
What has Clark showed you so far tonight, Clark Schmidt?
Schmidt's pitched out of some trouble. He walked the first guy. I believe the game you're going, this could be trouble, but he worked around that, got 2 strikeouts there in the first inning. He has 4 strikeouts through 3 innings here, 3+ now. So he's been very good. He gave up a leadoff single to start the third and worked around that as well. So he's been good at avoiding trouble when he's on and digging down there and finding these strikeouts, which he's done all season. I mean, he's one of the best in the country striking guys out.
Yeah, and Justino, tell us about his 2-run shot.
It was a shot to right field. It looked like it just cleared the wall. It actually hit that railing behind the right field wall here at Founders Park, and it just a ball that carried out of the park just enough to give him that 2-run homer. Last inning, Tom Thompson-Williams gave one a ride to left field to the wall, but it didn't quite get over. And there's no wind. The sun's starting to set, so there's not a lot of carry out there. But he got just enough of it. That was his first homer since March 12th.
Cone is 0 for 2. Has he come close to a hit?
He's slumping. He's slumping big time. No, he has not. He popped up and then had a little line drive to lead off the game for an out. So he is 0 for 2.
All right. Is the place packed?
Oh, yeah. Great crowd.
Yeah.
Really nice crowd.
All right. Make room for me. I'll be there in a little bit. Go ahead and have me a couple of hot dogs and a Diet Coke waiting for me.
There you go. Okay.
Sterling Sharp is coming back to the NFL. No. Did I say Sterling Sharp? I could have sworn that's what happens when you got a head cold. You just don't think clearly. Hey, we got to thank Larkin Belton. You want to say something real quick before you leave? Larkin Belton working his last full night with us here on Sports Talk.
No, I'm not going to say much. Just thank you guys for the opportunity, and I'm not going to say I'll miss you guys or anything. I'll be around.
That's right. You're not going to go far away, but you have done a fabulous job, and we certainly appreciate it very much, making way for our next person coming up. And we'll see you on Monday. Got to update that Georgia Tech Coastal score. Dang it.